So I had a guy call me, I guess because for some reason I get a lot of calls. They're looking for my mother and they want to sell her house. They want to buy her house. So I get a lot of phone calls like that. And one time this guy called me up and he said he wanted to buy the house. And I was like, oh, that's not me. It's my mother. Me and him get to talking. And I was like, hey, he was like, you're kind of funny. I was like, oh, you should go watch my Netflix thing, right? So this guy calls me back the next day and he's like, oh, I watched it. I think you're really funny. He's like, we should hang out. And I was like, oh no, I don't want to hang out with you. And he was like, I was like, I'm not interested in that. And he was like, oh, well, I have a wife. I'm like, what a weird world. He's like, I think it would be really fun if we hung out. And I was like, for you, not for me. I have no desire to hang out. He's like, my friends are lame. And I'm like, yeah, you're lame too. Like, there's no benefit to me hanging out with you.
No.
Do you know what I mean? Like, obviously, I'm somewhat funny and you think that's attractive and fun, but it's like, I don't think anything about you is fun. There's no, what do I get out of it?
I mean,
Nothing.
when have you ever had a relationship that started off that way as a friendship that you're like, this is really great? I just feel like those are unhinged people that make friends that way. It's crazy. Because one time I was into estate sales in Texas and I went to one to get just like cheap plates and I made a transaction and it wasn't anything big. I'm walking to my car, I get in and then all of a sudden this lady's like knocking on the window and she tells me to roll it down. And she's like, hi, I just moved into Houston like a few weeks ago and I just noticed that you sounded really nice up when you were paying for your objects and I was wondering if you would be interested in like, I don't know, getting coffee or hanging out or something. And I remember being like, no. Like, I only want to be friends with people that if I run into you like over and over a 6-month period.
Yeah, I'm not going to, you could be, first of all, the fact that you even did this is serial killer-like. Nobody walks to someone's car and is like, hey, can we be friends?
Yes. Insane.
There's a girl that did comedy. She moved here from Wisconsin. This is unlike when I first started doing stand-up, she had started. And she had a joke about how hard it is to make friends with people when you're older, which I guess it is true. And she's like, you can't just be like, hey, you want to like share Barbies or something. Because like as a kid, it's so much easier to make friends. And then when you're older, it is weirder.
Especially you get weirded out by stuff.
If you move from another place, like say you move from Wisconsin to New York, you're like, how do you make friends? You become friends with people that you work with, people, I guess,
all your
12-step meeting. Yeah, other than that, you don't really make friends.
That's what I was thinking, like, if you were older and you were saying that it's hard to make friends, I would just pretend that I have some kind of weird thing like alcoholism or overeating or shopping to just join a 12-step program.
Well, the thing was, she's an absolute alcoholic, but she didn't want to stop. So she'd have to go to those meetings wrecked and pretend she wanted to stop. She'd have to be like, hey, guys, I'm here. I want to stop. Not today, but one day I'm going to want to stop.
I've seen a few of those people there. She was a virgin?
Yeah, she was like saving herself for marriage. She was like 30-something, which is crazy to me to get wrecked and never give in to fucking someone that you don't want to fuck.
I know. It's wild. I've always thought, I mean, I don't want to be mean about it, but I have to say, if you're saving yourself religion-wise and you hit, let's say, 28 or 27, I feel like God or Jesus would be like, okay, we're good. You really did the hard part, and I think you've proven yourself, but now it's weird. Now you don't have to do this for me, and I think it's really weird that you're doing this. It's so crazy.
That's a good joke. That's a good joke. Write it down.
Thank you. I keep meaning to do it, but I actually do feel that way where I'm like, I think after a while, like your God would be like forgiving.
Also, I think God's like, I never asked you to do that. Do you know what I mean? Like, you ever have somebody, it's so weird where somebody's like, I did this for you. And they're like, I didn't ask for that. Like, what a waste of your time. She eventually did fuck somebody. And then she was like, oh, it's like no big deal. It's like, yeah, you were saving this thing that no one cares that much about.
Yeah. Especially as you get older, like sex for some reason ends up being not that big of a deal.
Yeah. I remember reading a post on Twitter, which I kind of liked, where this girl was like, you know, when I was 17, or 18, whatever, she's like, I met this guy on a Tuesday. And then on Friday we had sex and we dated for 3 years. She's like, then when I was older, I waited 2 months to fuck this guy. And then after we fucked, he was like, well, I'm never going to want anything serious from you. I forgot this girl's name. And it was just kind of like, yeah, there's really, and she was like, there are no rules. There's really not rules like that. Like, I know people who have fucked the first night and then gotten married, and people who've waited and dated and then nothing happened. So it's like,
you're just told like, oh, guys will respect you, but they don't give a shit. And they make that decision within minutes of meeting you.
Yeah. I had this friend who was like married a couple of times, and she was like, I'm going to talk to like a dating coach. And I was like, for what? What do you think they're going to tell you at 50? Didn't you like wait 3 months to have sex with somebody? You're like, if you want. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't think that should be a prerequisite, especially when you're that old and you're waiting to have sex with somebody and you're like, this guy's dick might not even work. And now I've wasted years, like not years, but months of my life on a guy whose dick doesn't work. And not that that's the most important thing, but it's like, I want to know that right away.
Oh, yeah. And also the idea to think that guys are like, while you're like saving yourself for them for 2 months, that they're doing it as well.
Yeah. They're like, I'll do it. It reminds me of that episode of Sex in the City where like, did you watch Sex in the City a lot?
Yeah, I think I watched the full series every few years from like beginning to end. I love it.
It's something that if I was like on a deserted island, that I would bring that series, but like I could just keep rewatching it. So Charlotte meets this guy. She doesn't want to have, they go back to, I guess, his place. She doesn't want to have sex with him. And she's like, hey, I don't want to have sex with you. And he's like, oh, okay. And he respects it. She goes to take a cab and he's like, hey, do you mind if I get in the cab with you? And she's like, why? And he's like, oh, I'm going to go bang some other girl. Like, he's totally okay with it, but he was just going to go bang another chick down, like, I guess where she lived. So you're like, yes, just because you're waiting doesn't mean anyone else is waiting.
Well, I just feel like with that whole dating thing, like, just have fun, do what you want, and then also try not to expect the worst. That way you don't get, like, attachment for feelings, and then, like, I don't know, see who you like, have fun.
Yeah, you could also wait, and there's not really a great connection.
Exactly.
And then you're like, I just wasted 2 months of my time.
It's so awful. I'll talk to a lot. Like, I was talking to Chloe LeBranch the other day, and she's really funny. And she was just telling me all these like stuff that happens in the dating world of like the guy, I think it's called haunting, where they send you like a text, just enough text to make you think that they're hanging around, but then they're just keeping their options open. And you're like, that sounds tiring. Like always looking at your stories, hoping that they're looking at it. I was like, oh, that sounds like a huge amount of mental real estate for me to like obsess about. Cause I know I would be like that if I was dating during this time period. Cause I remember getting caller ID. As soon as caller ID happened, I was obsessed with it. I was going upstairs all the time to like scroll through, hoping that the guy. So knowing that now, I would be absolutely being like, how can I conjure him to look at my stories? Like, I don't want to think about any of that shit if I was single right now.
I remember having caller ID, and like you go out for something, and it's kind of like that same thing where you're like, did this guy call me? And the red light's going off, and then it's just like a reminder about your dentist appointment, and you're like, oh, it hurts. It hurts you so bad.
It is awful, and that feeling of like just obsessively looking at something, hoping, and sometimes you didn't even ask them to call or whatever. You're just hoping that you manage to ESP to them the ability to be like, call me, call me, call me. So you're just wishing for this thing to happen that you have no control over.
I remember I was maybe 16 years old, which I consider like the hottest period of my life. And there was
We had no idea.
We had no idea. And I remember, like, you know how there was like hot guys in your neighborhood? So one time I had just gone bike riding, and I talked to this guy who was like the hot guy in the neighborhood, and I gave him my phone number. And then I guess I bike rode home, and in that time he had called me. Wow. But like, I don't think I had his phone number. So like, I never talked to him again. Do you know what I mean? So you're just like, I missed it. I missed my window of hooking up with the hottest guy in the neighborhood.
But little did we know, like, he would have made himself more accessible. He would have tried to find you. That's
true. But in that moment, you're like, that was my shot.
I know. Well, that's like, and then it's like that thought. It's really weird that we have these thoughts of like, well, I did see him here at 2 p.m. So maybe if I come back here every day this week for a month.
If I just stand outside his house every day where I'm trying to recreate that same magic, and then you finally see him and he's like, hey, what are you doing outside my house the whole time? You're like, well, I'm waiting for you to give me another shot. You're like,
No,
this
I missed my window.
This time I'm gonna get a cab home so I can make your phone call.
Will you tell me when you're gonna call so I don't miss it? It's so crazy.
So that guy now is like very bald and has like a severe coke addiction. So you're like, you actually did me a favor.
Yeah, that's like that Garth Brooks song, Thank God for Unanswered Prayers. Have you ever heard that song?
No.
It's really funny because it sounds like a romantic thing about his wife that he's married to now. But then when you think about it, you're like, it's actually quite mean and misogynist, or like probably more mean. He goes to a baseball game in his hometown and he runs into his old flame that he prayed to God that that would be his wife or girlfriend, and that it never happened. And then now he's just grateful who he's married to now. But it makes you think that he went to this baseball game 10 years later, and the girl that he was in love with is just like gross and disgusting and probably like thin hair, overweight. And he's like, oh God, thank God for unanswered prayer. Like,
well, that's the thing. Like, I've lived kind of in the same neighborhood I grew up in. So I think you should move out of your neighborhood because you just see your crushes like disintegrate and look gross. Yeah, like I seen another guy that I never really thought was cute, but everyone else liked. And I seen him in the store and he had like a graveyard of like coffins on his like shoulders. And like he looked terrible. Yeah, like those wife beaters on. And you're like, oh man, if like the girls who had a crush on you at 18 can see you now, they'd feel that same way. Like you shouldn't see your crushes like look awful.
No, it's weird. It's almost like there should be a movie about that, like where we're guardian angels that come back and then we show all these girls photos of the guys that they're pining over to be like, look.
Like the ghost of the future is like, you are doing so much better now.
Yeah, look at this guy. His face doubled in size. He has a huge head now and it's red and he has a bulbous nose. Like, it's wild. There's so many guys that you're like, that were considered, well, age is just mean. I can't handle how vicious aging is. Like, there were so many guys and girls that you were like, they were so attractive. And then just like time has just been vicious.
I seen a funny tweet that I had in my memories where it was something about how like we're complaining about the government taking away our reproductive rights. And you're like, oh no, time is doing that for you. There has nothing to do with the government. This is just basically time ruining your life.
Oh yeah, like there's just one egg in my body that's just like slowly crumbling like a stale muffin. Like it's just, there's nothing you can do. It'd be funny if like instead of freezing your eggs, they try to like put velvet ropes around it inside your body to make sure that nothing bad happens to it.
I know, but then over time you're like, these ropes aren't necessary. Nobody's trying to get them anymore. You're like,
this exhibit's shut down.
Yeah, you're like, you're not gonna need a bouncer. Nobody's trying to take any of your eggs. Like I was talking to my friend the other day and she's trying to have a baby and I was like, oh, like I'm not gonna have a baby, right? And she's like, why? And I guess she thought I could go, because I'm 42. I guess she was like, well, you can still do like in vitro and all that stuff. And I was like, oh no, I just want to sleep till 1 a.m. Like I don't even want that. Like I see my sister with my nephew and like he's cute for 5 minutes and then I'm like, I want nothing to do with him. Please take him back.
The early hour nonsense is crazy. Like that alone is such a deterrence to having kids because I do like at least sleeping till 10 a.m.
Yeah, but
it feels like a luxury.
But if you want to sleep till 12, you can. You know what I mean? You don't have to get up for a kid that wants your attention and wants like, I don't know. I guess I just watched that 90 Day Fiance show and there's like a girl who came here and like you watch that show and I think everybody assumes if you live in America, you're rich. Because this guy, she's from the DR. This guy lives in Florida. They spent 8 hours together and then he asked her to marry him. It's like, first of all of this is insane. Guys, if you want good garbage TV, it's like crack. You can't stop watching it. This guy is an Uber driver. He's a single father. He lives in Florida. He doesn't have a lot of money, you know, but he really loves this girl or whatever. She comes and like, he's a single dad, but he lives in a 1-bedroom apartment. This kid sleeps in the bed with him every night. So this lady comes here and she wants to fuck the first night. And like this kid's just on heroin, just not heroin, crack, I guess, which makes you like nuts. He won't go to sleep. So like they have to wait for this. He's like jumping on everyone's head this girl's like, this is not what I envisioned. Do you know what I mean? Like he doesn't even have his own room and they're all sleeping in this one bed and they're trying to get him to go to sleep so they could fuck on the couch. But he's like on crack, just so hyper where like he won't go to sleep. At one point, the father actually like binds his arms and legs to stop him from moving. Almost like you would do like hog tie someone where you're like, stop moving. It's 2 a.m.
I know. I doubt he divulged that information to her while they were on their long distance phone calls.
No, and what's funny is like you could tell like she thinks he's rich. So she asked him to take her shopping. And he was like, okay, I'll take you shopping. And he takes her to like a thrift store. And she's like, these clothes have been worn already. He goes, yeah, well, how many times have you worn that outfit? It's just so funny where she was so mad at it and he's just like, well, you've worn that 3 times, who cares if, like, you know what I mean? And I got his rationale, but he's like, I'm not rich. Like you hooked up with an Uber driver, you should have gotten somebody who had their own business.
That's on you. It's just funny to go into a Goodwill and be like, have at it, babe.
Well, and then the stuff he's picking up is like polyester and he's like, look, this is nice. And she's like, that's not nice, I'm not wearing that. But I knew as soon as they walked in there it was a thrift store because there's only one of everything. She was like, I thought you were going to take me like to go shop for Armani and Gucci. And he's like, I'm not even taking you to a store where stuff's new. You might be able to find a used Gucci shirt. They're not going to make it.
No, that's just the idea to be like, that's also, I don't know. I'm always jealous of those girls that are like, take me shopping.
Well, this girl, it did not work out well for her. He took her shopping to a thrift store.
Where was she from? Not that it matters.
The Dominican Republic.
Oh, okay.
But she's,
I don't know. You'd think she would know that Uber drivers probably don't make that much money.
Well, she came there and she was like, oh, I didn't bring a lot of my stuff. Like a lot of my clothes. I guess she thought this guy was going to give her a new wardrobe. And she was like, oh, I left my clothes for my sister to sell. And I think this guy was like, well, you should probably get them back. Like, I'm not buying you expensive clothes like that.
Oh, and I have a crack addicted son that I share the bed with.
That's such a bad move. Like to have your kids sleep in bed with you.
Well, it's weird.
I guess it's not weird if you're a single dad. You know what I mean? Like, I guess if you can't afford that stuff, but to bring a woman over and expect her to share the bed with you and your son is weird. It's creepy.
You wonder if he was ever like, I wonder if she'll be weirded out by this, or is this going to be an obstacle in our relationship? Or will she notice?
I mean, also, it's a little bit on this girl, too. Do you know what I mean? Like, you could tell, like, when he's FaceTiming with her, his chair has, like, rips in it. Like, this guy's not going to be buying you Dior. Do you know what I mean? He has a huge gash in his chair to let you know that he's not rolling in the dough.
Yeah. Life is tragic.
It's so tragic. And
it really is.
I don't think they're going to make it. So
this is everyone trying their best.
Yeah, at dinner time, she's like pissed off being like kind of cunty to him. And he's like, what's your problem? She's like, you owe me an apology.
Yeah.
He's like, for what? She's like, to take me to that store. He goes, you wanted clothes. And she goes, you owe me an apology. He goes, okay, well, I'm sorry that you're a selfish, egotistical bitch. Yeah, something like that. Where she's like, I'm not even eating this food. He's like, I don't care.
Oh, well.
So
yeah,
great.
That one's not going to work out. I mean,
No.
You can usually tell when a relationship's not going to work out within like the first week, I think.
Yeah, but it's just the level of unrealistic expectations is just at its like highest high. It's like if you want garbage TV, watch that show. It's
I
so
always
good.
feel like the first few times of just watching it, it felt like we're just watching some kind of form of sex trafficking happen.
Some of it is, I think. And then some of it's just like people like that where the expectations are just not real. There's this season, there's a couple where the guy is from not Hungary, Turkey. And they met on like a beekeeping site or something, like they're interested in harvesting bees. He only knows a couple of words in English. So basically every time they talk, she has to put it into a translate thing, which also seems like the best way to not have fights with people. Imagine going to a fight and having to text angrily and waiting for the person to read it. Then he has to text in his phone and you have to read it back. Who's going to have the time to argue like that? You're just like, I don't care enough. It doesn't matter.
No. I know my friend Lucas, he was dating a Korean girl for a while and her English was okay enough to have a conversation and they dated for quite a bit. But he was telling me they got a hotel in Atlantic City and then they drove back and he was trying to talk to her. And after like 5 minutes of him talking to her, she goes, Lucas, I'm tired. I can't do that. Like she was like, I can't try to act to speak English with you right now. Like I don't have the energy. And he thought it was so funny.
It is funny. In the middle of like an argument or something, someone's like, I tap out. I don't know what you're saying anymore. And this girl,
I just liked her honesty of like this, I don't know. This is tiring. Like I'm trying to figure out words to say to you and I don't give a shit. This is not a conversation worth trying for.
So this girl, she's like white trash, you know, not super white trash, but she's from Nebraska. She doesn't have like a ton of money. She brings this guy here. He's Muslim. He doesn't drink. He doesn't smoke. So she brings him out to dinner with her mother's white trash. And she finds out that he's Muslim and she goes, hey, you're not going to stone her to death, are you? And he's just like, what? He doesn't know. So she has to type in the phone, you're not going to stone her to death. So it's like you also just miss out on like timing of jokes. Do you know what I mean? In the moment, that's funny. But like when you have to read that, it's not as funny.
That is so funny to translate a joke. And it's a dark joke. Like you're like it's going to get lost.
Yeah,
Why
was
would
just
you
like,
say that?
He's like me love her. So like it's just not like you're not gonna get jokes. There's like the timing is really off if you have to read.
Yeah, it sounds horrible.
Yes, I would think it is horrible. It looks horrible, and the kids hate him. He insulted them right away. He was like, I miss my country. He's like, this is just cornfields. He thought their pizza was disgusting.
Where was he from?
Turkey.
Oh, that's hilarious. I kind of like the idea that all these people are coming to America and feeling like they got ripped off.
Well, I think they just have a version in their head of what America is like. And it's like, yeah, there's a small enclave of people that are rich millionaires. And then there's a lot of people just getting by.
Yeah, I feel like the American dream has been dead for the last 20 years.
Unless your American dream is going to a thrift store.
Yeah.
It's like the dream's still there. You got to change what you want.
Yeah, you got to lower your standards a little bit, but you're not going to have a rags to riches story here.
It's mostly rags to rags.
Yeah, maybe like slightly used rags.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I feel like we should come to an end, but
as always,
I think we got some emails or and also some comments on our Patreon that we can for our Patreon episode. Guys, thanks for joining our Patreon.
Yeah, thanks for joining the Patreon. I'm gonna use that money to take Zuzu to the vet because she's blind.
I know.
I
see her little body. That's her little chair.
She's so cute.
Adorable.
She's adorable. Yeah, guys, you should actually I think we're still in somewhat of a pandemic. Go rescue an animal if you have a lot of time at home.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I don't know that I'd ever rescue an animal because, like, I don't want to deal with their past bullshit. But, like, you guys should definitely do it.
Yeah, I think people were doing that for a while, but then it feels like it's stopped off or dropped off.
I think it's going to have a resurgence again because we're going to definitely go into another surge. Louis had that really funny joke about how he rescued a dog and then it bit everyone. And he's like, I had to get rid of it.
Yeah, my friend fosters pit bulls and she keeps having problems with them. And I'm like, you got to stop fostering them.
You
Because they're
gotta,
always killing other people's pets or getting into huge disruptions with them.
it's not bad if you have a step kid you don't like that much. You're like, let's adopt all these Michael Vick dogs and see if we can rehabilitate them.
Let's throw that in the mix. I just
And then-
feel like pit bulls.
And then your husband comes home and he's like, your dog killed my kid. You're like, who would have thought that would have happened? I had no idea.
He doesn't know.
Really,
He has no idea.
They get such a bad rap.
Well, I feel like your husband would be like, oh, cool, the NFL star. Like, he would think it's really cool that you got a Michael Vick dog.
Right, and if it killed his kid, he'd be like, a Michael Vick dog killed my kid. That would be his opening story at all of his like parties he went to. And he's like, oh, you'll never guess who killed my dog, who killed my kid.
Michael Vick.
And he's like, here's the dog right here. I'm not getting rid of this.
I just always feel like pit bulls I like pit bulls, but I feel like they're only good if you get to have them or they were raised by a really good person from the very beginning. I feel like there's a lot of shitty people that get pit bulls and then they raise them to be awful dogs or just like killers.
Well, I think there's such strong dogs, and a lot of them, unfortunately, are bred to fight. So I think it's hard to, if you get a dog like that and you don't know where its past is, it's just kind of hard. It's hard if you have multiple dogs, although I have a friend that's rescued them and she's been fine with them, but you're like, well, that's not always the success story. So it is hard.
Yeah.
Guys, don't foster any pit bulls.
Or do a mix. Maybe that'll soften them.
So this is how I feel. I do think they get a bad rap, and a lot of them are really sweet, but like, I'm not going to rescue any of them. I don't want to deal with them attacking like my 22-pound pug.
I know. Well, you've established a really long-term relationship with Zuzu.
Yeah, like if a pit bull came in here, I'd have to get a steak knife and cut its throat. And then what a mess that's going to be to clean up.
I know. All for Zuzu, and then she'll have no idea what happened, so she won't even appreciate what you did for her.
She's not going to appreciate me stabbing this dog to death to save her.
Well, she can't even
She can't even
anything
see
like
it. Yeah, she has one eye. So to her, it just looks like this dog's bleeding out. She doesn't know I'm doing it to save her. My mom has one, and she's very sweet, but I don't know that I'd leave her alone with it. Only because she's so much stronger.
They are. They're so muscular. My thing is, and I've always felt this with dogs or pets in general, you should get a pet that you can take on in a fight if it ever turns on you. And I know I would not be able to take on a dog like a pit bull in a fight.
Yeah, I remember when I had Marley, I was thinking of getting this pit bull that was really, really cute. And then everyone scared me. They're like, well, you don't know. You don't want to have two girls together. They might fight. And like, Marley is a boxer. There's no way she's going to beat a pit bull. So then I was reading up on like how to get, like if they get into a fight and buying like a stick to put in its mouth. I'm like, this is crazy. This is like bringing a pedophile into my house with a child and just being like, well, what are the signs if he's going to fuck my kid? But I'm like, well, I want to make this work. But you're like, I can't leave them alone together. I have to supervise them all the time. And I was like, I'm not fucking doing it.
Yeah, it's too much work. All right. Well.
All right, guys. This has been fun.
Vadge Podcast at Gmail. Yeah.
Yeah, Vadge Podcast. Leave us some. We'll do questions and comments on the Patreon.
I think that's it. And then we'll see you
Sunday. That's a wrap.